It's the Tribune broadcast on this Wednesday evening, the 7th of September, with myself, John McAteer, Eamon McFadden and Declan Kerr, and we're going to be talking the cost of living. Average electricity prices have gone through the roof again. Just reading there just a minute ago that the average bill for gas and electricity as of now is $3,000 a year. That's up so mad. Is it all price gouging?
You'd think is there a certain element of that in it too, but it's across the board and it's across Europe anyway.
But I mean, we are getting very little. The government makes a great play on the fact that we do not get much gas from Russia or anywhere else.
Yeah.
We're getting from where? The UK?
Yeah. And yeah,
we don't get fuel from there either, so why would prices be going through the roof?
Yeah.
You know, the kind of prices that's come in the last week from the main companies, yeah, it's almost incredible. They're almost up by a third.
Yeah, and it's no 2 or 3%, so it's 20.
No, it's 20 plus percent.
It's up
near
by
30%. It's 26%. One of those.
Yeah, 29% today in energy. Yeah. They've gone through the roof. I don't know how that can be justified because, you know, ESB as the main player here, their electricity, from most of us, there's 1.2 million linked up to them. Yeah. And the reality is that they made a profit last year of 679 million. I mean, how can they justify these increases? Can the government not cap them?
There has to be a cap put in place, you'd think, if they're facing into such if they're chatting about what they're curtailing energy at peak times and changing the rates for peak times and things like that. Surely there has to be a cap in
but
there.
They're totally reluctant to do anything like that to these big players.
What's that down to, lobbying, does it, John, or what?
It has to be. It's probably down to this thing called capitalism. It's the way that we've led our lives this last 50, 60, 100 years. Is it the fact that capitalism, as we now know it, is failing us? You know, the whole issue of capitalism.
The free market is...
The free market has overtaken us and it has rushed past us with great haste, leaving a wake of huge price increases in the middle of all that.
These companies looking for infinite growth in a finite world, you know, it's...
I mean, how can a company that had profits last year of 679 million, they were up 20% or 10% in the previous year, probably up another 10% this year. How can a price increase be justified there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there just seems to be a total reluctance.
But you can imagine the power that they can pardon the
tackle
fun.
that.
Or are we being told white lies here? Are we so totally reliant on what happens in Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah.
Are we so totally reliant
Control.
that it's inevitable that everything is going to go through the roof?
Yeah.
I mean, how dependent are we as a country for food on imports?
Yeah.
I mean, that's nonsense that we export 90% of our beef products and our milk. That's quite true. But I mean, not everybody is galloping down milk and beef every day of the week. I mean, I would imagine that Ireland is not secure from a point of view of the availability of food. I would say that. But we'll move on to something less exciting, and this is Liz Truss as the new Prime Minister. She is threatening to activate the protocol to remove the agreement, and this spells huge bother for us. Spells huge bother for this.
Was she very clear on that today?
Very clear.
But
yeah.
she's the architect of it from her previous
that,
role.
yeah.
So I suppose she's only shoring it up
And
from her current role.
Her language hasn't...
Oh, it hasn't diminished. If anything, maybe it's gotten more consolidated.
If you thought Boris Johnson was terrible, now this is going to be much worse, because I can't see where her talent or her ability is, or her persona.
Yeah, and
Maggie Light.
And she doesn't have even a huge support within the Conservative Party.
No, and I think the nature of the adversarial battle for that position with Rishi Sunak has really put a big wedge.
I think the other big thing is that her margin of victory was way below the anticipated 65%. I just listened to that debate going on yesterday behind the scenes on Radio 5 Live, and the 65% would have been a realistic one, but she was just 14% ahead.
And she was losing all the time.
Yeah. But I mean, she was being found out all the time. The more she was exposed, even though she refused to do a lot of TV interviews. I mean, Rishi Sunak, I wouldn't have been too anxious about him getting in there. So what you had on offer was two very, very poor candidates. They have very little to offer.
The best, the lot.
They have very little to offer us. It's only us that we're concerned about. Because the UK looks to be in pretty big bother with the pound.
Yeah.
They look to be in very big bother as a major player, financially and every other way. But I mean, when she's using this jargon, together we can defeat it, you know, all this. When did the British government ever listen to the voice of the people? I mean, their energy prices are also going through the roof. Their cost of living is going through the roof. But they don't have, well, they're a bit like us. They're probably not as bad as us. Because all our charities are completely overrun with demand that they cannot even meet. It's probably not quite that bad in the UK as yet, from what I can gather. But that is Liz Truss. Will she have a happy period as Prime Minister, or will she last a year, 2 years? Will Boris Johnson come back?
Did you ever think that Johnson would have lasted as long as he did? And I'll tell you, he went kicking and screaming in the end.
His Latin term anyway means he may be back.
He's trying to keep the doors open. I'd like to have seen Liz Truss going to meet the Queen for the first time, because famously when she was I think she was a Lib Dem member actually back in the time.
She was, yeah, originally.
Where she got up and she said about the monarchy should be abolished, and it was an absurd idea. So she's changed her tune on a few
plenty
things.
Plenty of clips are changing her Brexit opinion as well and all.
I'm going to go and look at something that you've done, Declan, and a well-known figure in the Irish Army, and indeed here in Donegal, Declan O'Carroll.
Yeah, it was a nice little piece. Declan O'Carroll. At the recent Letterkenny Memories Night, he was in conversation with Sean Maloney about his career in the army, and a very high profile career. Done a lot of tours overseas in Lebanon and Israel and other places, and also his love of Rockhill and the history of the whole the location. So Declan went through a lot of stuff in relation to his own career and in relation to Rockhill and his interest in that, and obviously he's a great interest in history generally. He was a past president of the Donegal Historical Society.
He was talking here to Letterkenny's new heartthrob as far as chat show host is concerned, Sean Maloney.
Yeah, I wonder will we be hearing more of him after this?
I think you will, yeah. Sean always would have that capacity and probably that ability.
He's a man that, Sean enjoys and a great interest too, obviously, in the whole history of Rockhill and all that. So, no, that was a very, very interesting and.
He probably played football.
Or reading that actually.
When he was playing with the Dodgers from St Connell's.
That's a probability, and of course Declan O'Carroll obviously was well known as a footballer, footballer with over in
the Dodgers was a rare title for a hospital football team.
Well, came to a sad end, and apparently it was one of their own staff who was the secretary of the Donegal League at the time had to. Pull the pin on them in the end.
Oh, seriously?
Yes, and it was good crack. The late Neil Cullen was good crack about the whole thing and how it ended up, and in the end there was a sad ending to it.
That was such an inappropriate name. I don't know where that name came out.
That would be interesting. I don't know where the name came out of. Yeah.
That would have been like something that Neil Cullen, the late Neil Cullen,
it probably come up with
very droll character.
Very joke picked up and just ran with it like a.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Declan O'Carroll. We're diverting a little bit.
Yeah. Declan spoke, about his own early army career in Rockhill, and then his evolution up the career path. Then and he eventually ended up as a colonel was in Brussels. The final 3 years was in Brussels with NATO. So. A lot of experiences there, and obviously talked about his own family life as well. Obviously being away from home quite a lot too. Big commitment there in terms of that sort of thing as well. And obviously, he's delighted now too, I suppose, in relation to Rockhill that the building has, and it's now private ownership now, but it's now a lovely hotel complex now and resort out there.
I was lucky enough to get a walk around Rockhill with the current owner and Declan one day.
Yes.
And it was even invited us both to go along, and this was before it was revamped at all. In fact, I don't think there was even a builder had gone on site at that stage, and it was fascinating. I didn't know the half of it, and Declan was the real man to. Room by room, he just could tell you what stories for everything, and it was absolutely fascinating.
He just said going up the avenue the first day, he just fell in love with the whole building and that sort of stuff.
We had meant to do a piece on 20 years ago. Francis obviously has fucked off and he hasn't printed the page. But we're looking at Pat Rabbit being a dark horse for the Labour Party leadership. Hard to believe 20 years ago since Pat Rabbit became the leader of the Labour Party. I'm presuming he got the leadership at that point rather than Eamon Gilmore. Again, I don't have the page to work with, so we'll move on to something else. Eamon, you're talking about something different, a children's book.
Something different. It's sort of a children's book it's tinged with a kind of a sad note as well. And I was speaking yesterday with Nigel Doherty, and Nigel's from Derry originally, but well known in Dunfanny. He'd be the former captain of the golf club down there, and he's the current vice president of the club and that, and he'd be very well known in the area too. But their family were visited with a tragedy there during the kind of COVID times. It wasn't linked to COVID per se, but his 38-year-old son Chris died suddenly. Your father had two very small children, and he was living in Oma, but would have been a frequent visitor up here, I'm sure too. Chris used the time over furlough when he had his young family around him to write a children's book, and he wrote a book. It's a colourful title. It's called Donovan the Sloth Makes It Home for Bedtime Stories, and he'd been working on this book as a kind of inspired by his eldest son Archie, and he was working with his cousin who was an illustrator, but sadly he died really suddenly. He was at home. He took a cardiac arrest. He was airlifted to Altnagalvin Hospital where he survived for a week, but sadly it wasn't to be, and his organs.
So the book is now out published.
So if you want to go out now, the book is now available to buy on Amazon, and half the money raised is going to go to the British Heart Foundation to help cardiac research on that as well. So that's the name of that book is Donovan the Sloth. Sorry, where is it again? Sorry, I had it out there. Looking at this page too. Donovan the Sloth Makes It Home for Bedtime Stories, available on Amazon. So that's
very good.
Wish it good luck.
We have 2 front pages today for some reason. So I'm going to do one.
double the news.
Dublin does not see emergency according to Pierce Doherty of Sinn Féin, and he's talking here about these big delays in relation to social protection, the Department of Social Protection. It takes about between 5 and 8 weeks to process a case. This is very typical, I would imagine. When we're talking here about emergency social welfare payments, to think that you're going to have to wait 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, for God's sake,
where's the emergency
Santa
there,
could come and go at that point. He has called on Minister Humphreys to intervene and take immediate action to get the processing times down. She could have put the payments online, which was another option, and she needs to return community welfare officers to the... This is a big one. They're no longer in the community, so they can't be accessed. So he goes on to state that it states that 95% of applications are finalised within 5 to 8 weeks. So obviously there's some that's taken longer than that. That is unbelievable. Declan, you're talking about Swilly Park here. Redevelopment, reopening, new chapter.
Fine.
Have they got a new team?
Well, they have a team. I wouldn't say it's a new team, but they have a team. They have some new faces, all right. But anyway, the pitch was redeveloped over the last year. Swilly Park was closed, and during that time, the team had to play all their games away from home. But anyway, they have a brand new pitch there, and the official reopening is taking place on Saturday afternoon, and we have Councillor Ian McGarvey as one of the special guests, along with 3 current League of Ireland players: Barry McNamee, Keith Cowan, and Ronan Boyce, who are all playing in the League of Ireland. So they're going to officially reopen it, and it's going to be a family fun day event as well.
What have they done to it?
They just
there's the pitch.
It's the pitch. Pitch dimensions came in there and just done a full new revamp of the pitch and drainage system and all that. So
I haven't been out at Swilly Park since before COVID, actually.
Yeah, so
long time.
So they got a grant of I think it was something in the region of 60,000, and then they had to raise around 30 themselves, or something under 30. So the cost in and around are just under 90,000 euros, and they have plans now to redevelop the AstroTurf as well. They've got a grant for that, and they're currently fundraising for that as well. So
we shall visit the Coolboy Junction beyond.
Coolboy Junction,
mile down the road or something.
Between Ulster and I suppose the Blue Blazes or the Blue Banks. People would know
that might not be the first time it has come up on the Tribune, is it?
No, it has come up before.
You have a bit there from Michael McBride.
Michael McBride, councillor, local area. He's saying that there's ongoing concern there, as you said, it's been before. At the Ballymuscadden exit at the Coolboy Junction, and we were chatting there, Declan. It's kind of like that side that's got the thick tree line on it. That clearly for people going up and down that road there, that's kind of the vision lines are very, very difficult there.
It's quite amazing at the minute when you're out driving the number of junctions. that are very, very dangerous because of overhanging, overgrown
All that
shrubs,
encroaching
trees,
vegetation,
branches. Vegetation is everywhere. There's massive growth because I was driving home last night at midnight and the temperature was just up over 17. Imagine. But what's Michael McBride planning here?
So Michael has sorry, Declan, go ahead there.
No, well, I think what Michael's talking about, initially anyway, is to get some tree trimming done anyway, at least at the very minimum to get because the vision lines are very, very obscured at the moment, and the cycle lane there, cyclists,
walking, which is a busy route.
Has anybody any idea why these vision lines are not being kept clear? Is it the council's responsibility?
Is it the hedge cutting ban that comes in over the summer that affects that?
Well, I think, and this Michael,
Michael's safety first.
Yeah, well, I think Michael's going to be in contact with the council initially anyway to see if they can do something.
Is hedge cutting prohibited right now?
Not, it's lifted now, I think.
Lifted from the 1st of August.
Yeah, but it goes in. It comes in early enough, and it stays there. So all that vegetation,
But I would have imagined that those junctions, and there's loads of them around the place.
Yeah, but as you say, they're
huge amounts. By the middle of the summer, they're dangerous because if you're, no matter what way you're turning, your lack of vision has been impeded by so many elements of
vegetation and all.
Vegetation
stuff growing up and trees coming down and thick.
The growth you see this summer has been unbelievable.
We're going to talk about a little bit about the recognition for the sports stars of 1981.
80 and 81. This is something that the Donegal Sports Star Committee was doing pre-COVID for a number of years, bringing back winners from 40 years ago. So obviously with COVID we missed out a year or two, so we're bringing two groups together now on the 17th of October. And we'll recognise them with a small presentation. And it's been very popular pre-COVID, and it's an opportunity for those winners of 40 years ago to come together in the one room, and it has proved to be very popular. So we're looking forward now. We're just in the process now of contacting all those. We're in the final stage of it. So some great stars from the past will be there on the night. So
very, very good
stuff. That's nice.
On the front page we have a nice picture of European bronze medalist Mark English, who cut the tape to officially open the running track in Glenswally National School. Pictured with the principal, Joseph Gallina, and chairperson of the Board of Management, Eileen Quinn. And then we have the main picture, the post-to-post adventure race in Downings on Saturday was won by Ard's man, obviously Sean Stewart. He's pictured with his wife Rachel and his children Anna and Joey. Nice pictures there. Our main lead story is in relation to concerns as tenants given notice to quit, and this is in relation to, I suppose that they believe that they're being forced out to make way for Ukrainians because there's bigger money in it, and there's no point in putting a tooth in that. But we are stating here that government sources have indicated that Donegal currently has 206 available rooms for refugees with a capacity for 727. That's a lot. Those figures are for the 2 weeks up to Friday of this week. And the Department of Integration and Equality has told local authorities they are continuing to actively seek further accommodation. And sure, no matter where you go at the moment, you're seeing vehicles, you're seeing the big white vans back on the roads again. It's a bit like the dawn of the Celtic Tiger. There's that much work going on.
Yeah.
Houses are being renovated, probably reconstructed. You wouldn't know how to say about that because there's two issues here. Social housing was meant not to be impacted as a consequence of housing refugees. Forget about where they come from. That pledge was given by Roderick O'Connor, who was the Minister, on the 5th of May last year, and he said that there was a way around that. He would ensure that the money would be put there and the Department of Housing would look after social housing. All sounds grand, but where has gone wrong? Because we have 2,700 and whatever on waiting lists, and we've just lost 17 houses due to for turnkey development to housing refugees, and nobody's happy about that. There's no point in sitting here and saying, well, like, you have to house the refugees. Of course you have, but what about housing stock in this country? It's an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
But the list is, we have a list of the areas that are now getting the approval for Ukrainian families. Lots of them, there's 73 new people arrived in Mulford this week, and they're very, very welcome, as I'm sure they are everywhere else. And where's that page, Jim? Because I revamped it. Fuck this up as well. I was going to read out some of the places that's getting refugees. Places like Dunfanaghy, Dunlewy,
yeah.
Bundoran, Milford. We're looking at Burton Port,
And then
Carrick,
Lishoan as well.
Dunlow. We're looking at Mavall, Glenealy, Clonmany. We're looking at Bunbeg. We're looking at Ardra. We're looking at Bundoran. And the biggest number is coming into Carndonagh.
Right.
Carndonagh has very big numbers. 49 rooms of capacity for 133, and then Mulford 27 rooms with 130, and Bundoran 43 rooms for 100 people. And the list goes on, but they're actively pursuing more accommodation, and yet Donegal is sitting with 265 spaces pledged. Now there's going to be a big difference between what's pledged and what's rented commercially. So there's big questions to be answered there, because we understand that the numbers of Ukrainians as of now is in the region of about 48,000, and that's going to keep growing. So where do we go from here? Are there any answers? Why should the integrity of the social housing lists have, and they have been compromised? The fact that that happened in Mulford shows that the plans of the council have been thrown awry.
Yeah.
And where do we go
So
from
there
here?
for a reason, you know.
Obviously, the council doesn't have any control of this, and this is no criticism of the council. It's the department, Stara O'Brien's housing department, and it's the leadership of the country that you have to question here. But the fact that we're continuing to take in these numbers is creating a big issue. There is no evidence of any urgency in housing local people. There isn't any urgency. I mean, Donegal County Council is probably, according to the number of councillors, is probably finding accommodation for about 100 people per year. Now, I don't know how many thousand has been found accommodation for from the refugees so far, probably 3,000 or more. That's a way up there, you know. So there's a big vacuum there, but there's also a vacuum of communications between communities.
Yeah.
Because the minister did pledge, you know, that he was talking about, he was launching the direct provision bill to replace the old system where they could be housed literally anywhere. There was no communication at all with local communities. They were put into very small towns, very small villages. That was all going to end. So now you have a follow-on to that, which is much worse. Much worse. Obviously we didn't expect 48,000 refugees from Ukraine, but surely we could have done a bit better than we have done, given that you have that story from the Irish Times this morning. We're going to leave it at that for this week. We'll talk to you again next week.